I'm Shannon Martin. Tonight, the GTA reacts to the attack on writer Salman Rushdie.
This is a really serious attack on freedom of expression.
Stabbed on stage, Rushdie remains in hospital, the latest on his suspected attacker. Plus,
Want to do the spit test next?
Spit, spit, spit.
A new COVID test aims to make it a little easier to get a result. We'll show you how it works.
Why does it taste so weird?
I hope you like it with egg white.
A father and son and their remarkable journey, each undergoing 4 organ transplants, why they're hoping their story inspires others.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Hello, thanks for joining us. We'll get to those stories in a moment, but first we want to start with a story we're tracking this evening. Let's get to some video now just into our newsroom. We are waiting for an update from Toronto Police in Scarborough. The chief is expected to make a statement within the next 30 minutes. Earlier today, officers were called to Midland and Kingston around 2:30. Here's what we know at this hour. A woman was stabbed by a suspect inside the home. A child was also inside at the time. We also know police have shot a man. There is still much more to come on this story as it's developing. We'll bring you the chief when he begins speaking. Yorkdale Mall went into lockdown briefly earlier today after reports of a man with a gun in the area. Around 2 o'clock, calls came in about a man driving on the 401 while shooting a gun in the air. Police found and arrested a man in his 30s, and they seized a gun. Fortunately, no injuries reported with that one. And Peel Regional Police have arrested a Brampton man on a Canada-wide warrant for firearms-related offences. This all stems back to the killing of Demario Jenkins in Toronto in May 2020. Police say just last week in Mississauga, they were investigating a vehicle when they found 2 firearms. A 19-year-old in the vehicle turned out to be wanted on that Canada-wide warrant. He was a youth at the time of the incident and cannot be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. One day after police warned people about the risks of going to a Mississauga adult entertainment club, there's been a couple of arrests. The club is called Her, and tonight Peel police say they've laid drug and guns charges against 2 men. The arrests happening around 1 a.m. this morning. Yesterday, you may remember, officers put out an official public safety alert advising people to be careful in and around the club. They say since the beginning of last year, they've responded to more than 24 incidents, including 4 separate shootings. Her said in a statement it is cooperating and responding to all police requests. We are learning more tonight about the man accused of storming a stage and attacking famed author Salman Rushdie. He remains on a ventilator in a New York hospital. Lorenda Redekop with the latest.
Salman Rushdie remains in hospital in Pennsylvania. After yesterday's attack, according to his agent, the 75-year-old writer has a damaged liver, severed nerves in his arm, and risks losing an eye. Police searched the home of the 24-year-old suspect, Hadi Matar, who's pleaded not guilty. His parents came from this town in Lebanon. NBC News reported that Matar's social media accounts suggest he's sympathetic to the causes of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Shia extremism.
I really hope that he's going to be okay. I think we can't afford to lose voices as important.
This Toronto bookseller remembers selling Rushdie's satanic verses decades ago, back when some burned the book, seen as blasphemous by some Muslims.
This is a really serious attack on freedom of expression, and I think that's really horrifying, to tell you the truth.
Rushdie faced the threat of violence for decades, with a fatwa ordered by Iran's then supreme leader in 1989 for Muslims to kill Rushdie and anyone involved in the book and its publication. One Writers' Festival director recalls the fear when Rushdie visited in 2017 and an audience member insisted on going on stage to hand the writer a box.
There were audible gasps in the audience. Now, luckily, that turned out to be simply a gift from a well-meaning individual. But that sense of, impending doom was there.
Still, for many, there was the sense that the serious threat on Rushdi's life no longer existed. But one Iranian-Canadian writer says every few months, Iranian media do an article on Rushdi.
The Iranian state has effectively campaigned for this guy's murder since 1989. So no matter who did the actual attack, of course, the Iranian state shares a huge part of responsibility.
Many questions remain about what led to this horrific attack. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
In other news tonight, the province's only cannabis wholesaler is still dealing with the aftermath of a cyber attack last week. Delia Ashry spoke with pot shop owners who are waiting on supply and frustrated with what they say is a lack of transparency.
It's been almost a week since Ontario's only cannabis wholesaler experienced a cyber attack. The Ontario Cannabis Store announced on Monday that it was halting deliveries. They're still a few days behind, leaving pot shop owners like Vivian Wilson still reeling after the incident.
Still pretty empty.
So when you say empty, do you mean like these shelves usually at the bottom would have more things on it?
That's correct. That's correct. We would all the shelves would be full. So we're still, I mean, this is okay, but we're not at the normal level of inventory that we would like to have.
Wilson says she was not notified about the attack until 3 days later, and she didn't receive her supply until Thursday. And meanwhile, this store owner still hasn't received her supply yet and claims she hasn't heard from OCS either.
I'm not hopeful I'll hear anything before the end of the weekend. Massive potential for customers not to return, which is deadly for us.
And like many other business owners, both were hit hard by the pandemic and the recent Rogers outage.
I lost thousands of dollars. That's the reality of it. And I made sure I was here to explain the situation. And potentially I've lost customers as well.
Wilson's store is one of hundreds of others in the province to experience the same issue. She received an email on Friday from OCS Chief Executive Officer saying, "Our focus is now on working our way through the backlog of wholesale orders and getting trucks on the road delivering to Ontario's authorized retailers who count on us." She says many other retailers are also concerned about potentially leaked data.
It's not something that they can do in silo, which they have been doing over the last 2 years. They've definitely been making decisions in silo without working with their retail partners. So that's something that I encourage that needs to be done and improved significantly to build back trust with our wholesale provider.
More transparency and maybe more than one logistics partner so that if Domain Logistics gets a cyber attack, let's go to our other partner who we use half the time.
The OCS says a forensic investigation by third-party cybersecurity experts have determined that no OCS distribution center systems or customer data was compromised by the incident. We also reached out to Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, and they did not get back to us in time for broadcast. Dalia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
They are often dreaded, the nasal swab of a COVID-19 test. Well, now there may be another option available, easing some of the discomfort. Meg Roberts shows us how it works.
6-year-old Matthew Saxby isn't a big fan of getting a PCR test. He broke his arm during the pandemic and had to get a nasal swab in the hospital.
Ever since then, he was like, I don't want anything to do with those nose tests. So it was harder to get him to do it.
With kids going back to school and outbreaks happening across the country, his parents believe testing will continue to happen. But the frustration is mounting with swabbing their kids' noses. Fortunately, they've been presented with a new option.
How was the test? Pretty good.
They're still getting a PCR test, which is more accurate than an antigen test. But instead of nasal swab, a new portable device uses saliva to provide results in under 30 minutes with no lab involved.
Good, a little bit more.
It costs about the same as a nasal PCR test.
It's really great to count on the accuracy of these kinds of tests, because sometimes with the rapid test the swab up the nose, we're not exactly sure if we've done it correctly. We try our best.
The SAL 6830 was recently authorized by Health Canada. The lab here in Toronto is the only one in the province who currently administers the test and says it's beneficial for those continuously having to get swabbed. Another benefit, according to an infectious disease expert, is being able to quickly identify if an individual has COVID-19 so the time-sensitive antiviral drug can be taken. But he's interested in seeing further data.
How accurately they can detect the new variants, that would be my only concern, and we haven't seen the data yet.
The device distributor says it could be a game changer for areas where a lab isn't available.
Another location may be ships or vessels, if you think about the Coast Guard or even cruise ships, where the individuals are at sea and they don't have the opportunity to go to a hospital or to a lab. That product is really well suited to have PCR level testing provided on site.
CBC News has reached out to the province to see if this new PCR testing will be used in hospitals, long-term care homes, and other government-run facilities, but has yet to hear back. Meg Roberts, CBC News, Toronto.
Turning back now to our top story, Toronto Police Chief James Raymer is talking live to reporters about an officer-involved shooting. Let's listen in.
When officers are having to deal with these situations and deal with individuals under any circumstances, and all deaths are tragic, and it has a huge impact on the officers that are involved as well as the families that are involved. And so I like to come down and see what's going on, and also I'll be going back to 41 Division to see our personnel as well, to make sure that they're okay, and we're providing whatever assistance we can to the family. Okay? Okay, that's it, folks. Thanks very much.
So that's the police chief. He is live on scene right now at Midland in Kingston. We know this afternoon a woman was stabbed there inside a home. We understand a child was also inside at the same time. Police arrived on scene. We know a man was shot. The man and woman have been taken to hospital. That was just a little bit of a press conference happening right now in Scarborough. We're turning now to the weather forecast. Our friend Matt Hamill is here with us. And you know what was missing today was the humidity. It was really pleasant out there.
No doubt. It's been pleasant for the past few days. And yeah, today especially, Shannon, you're right. Great to be with you this evening. And we're seeing the pleasant conditions continue. So if you're enjoying the nice break from the heat and the extreme humidity, you're going to like the next few days. And it's all thanks to this national pattern. What's driving all the heat into parts of Western Canada, but all this pleasant conditions, fresh air, below seasonal is what we've been seeing for this trend. But it might be heating up towards the end of August. We'll talk about that a bit later in the program. And as we kind of keep the thing moving along here, we do have a beautiful forecast for tonight's game for Toronto FC at kickoff. 23 degrees, a bit of sunshine. Also, tomorrow afternoon, we have the conclusion of the National Bank Open, and the forecast is looking great as well. 26 degrees, not too humid, just feeling like 29. So just like you said, Shannon, not too humid. That does continue into tomorrow. Now, also a little bit more clouds moving in. Could see some showers this evening into tomorrow for parts of southwestern Ontario, but really not impacting the GTA at all. In fact, we have quite a nice forecast, maybe some substantial rain for next weekend, but we'll talk about all that coming up a bit later on the program.
The rain, we haven't seen that in a while. We'll welcome it. Thanks, Matt.
No doubt. Talk to you soon.
Turning to some international news now. Monday marks a grim anniversary, the collapse of the government in Afghanistan. Well, today, Taliban fighters in the capital fired into the air, breaking up a women's rights protest. About 40 women had marched to the Education Ministry. Reports say some were beaten with rifles. Since the Taliban takeover last summer, girls have been denied high school education, women's movement and dress have been restricted, and women have lost jobs at a much higher rate than men. We'll have much more on the anniversary in the coming days right here on CBC News. Meantime, officials in Spain say one person is dead, 3 others badly injured after high winds collapsed a stage at a music festival. It happened during overnight performances. This morning, as people were leaving the event, as it was suspended, it's now been canceled. In all, more than 30 people were taken to hospital. Winds in the area at the time when the stage collapsed were clocked at more than 80 kilometers an hour. Ukrainian officials say they received new reports today of shelling around a nuclear plant. It wasn't clear whether the facility was hit. The nuclear plant is Europe's largest on the war's eastern front. Russian forces say they've captured a key village. Ukraine says fighting continues. The village has been fortified for years as a buffer against Russian-backed separatists controlling a nearby city. Welcome back. A father and son are sharing their incredible story tonight in hopes of inspiring others. Both live with a rare illness. Now both have undergone 4 organ transplants. Dale Manukduk has more.
Why does it taste so weird?
I hope you like it with egg whites.
A father and son bonded not just by blood and pranks, but also through the rare experience of having a 4-organ transplant operation.
In November of 2006, I had a liver, bowel, stomach, and pancreas transplanted at Toronto General.
Both Daryl Wallace and his son Owen were diagnosed with gastrointestinal pseudo-obstruction with hollow visceral myopathy.
Basically, I couldn't eat anything or really drink much of anything for 20 years until my transplant. All of my nutrition came via IV feeds. So if you picture, an IV in your arm, I had one in my chest permanently implanted.
We met Daryl outside of Sick Kids Hospital where he received treatment. For the past 15 years, he's had a clean bill of health, built a career as a pharmacist, and his own family. But when he and his wife Jamie's son Owen was 1 year old, he started to present familiar symptoms.
They started treating it as different conditions, not the same, and it wasn't until genetic testing came out essentially that we confirmed what we hoped wasn't true and that he did have the condition.
Can you try taking another deep breath for me, please?
Toronto General Hospital and Sick Kids have only seen a handful of these cases over the last few decades, and after 2 years of being on the organ transplant wait list, Owen had a successful operation on July 30th. This is him just a week later inspiring his parents with his strength and smile. Owen is always good for a laugh.
Don't you grab my hand and pick my nose with my finger.
Daryl and Jamie Wallace are grateful for Owen's health and future and are mindful of how that's possible through life-saving organ donation.
All we know really is that somebody would have been about his size because he's only 5 years old and quite small for his age.
Those parents have to wait for that moment where their child is on death's door before they can make that decision, and doctors will approach them. And that is not something any parent wants to face or wants to think about.
The Wallaces are hoping their story gets more people to think about saving lives through donation.
There's a great importance to make as many opportunities for transplant as possible for children because they are disproportionately affected and are disadvantaged in some ways in terms of the waiting time.
There are currently over 1,400 Ontarians waiting for an organ transplant. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Returning to our top story, Toronto Police Chief Raymer gave an update minutes ago in Scarborough on a police-involved shooting. Earlier this afternoon, a woman was stabbed inside a home. A child was also inside at the time. Here's more from the chief just moments ago.
30, we received information about a woman had been stabbed here at an address on Midland Avenue. Officers arrived on scene and they were advised that a suspect was in the house with a child. The officers had an interaction with that suspect and he was shot. And the child is unharmed. The woman has sustained serious injuries and she's been transferred to a hospital and is in stable condition. Since the original incident, I've now been informed that the suspect has died as a result of being shot. And so the SIU has invoked its mandate and is investigating.
Matt is back and talking about rain, which the gardens and grass would likely welcome.
Yeah, finally, maybe some showers midweek, Shannon, and then later next weekend, we might see a significant rainfall event, but really it is a dry pattern that we're locked into. But you talked earlier, Shannon, about the comfortable conditions, all this fresh air, really the past few days and even the next few days are looking still quite nice, comfortable temperatures and not too humid. So we'll look for that to continue. Now, this is the national trend we've been locked into. All the heat really in western parts of Canada, below seasonal for eastern parts, including the GTA. But later in into August, we can see the end of the month pattern maybe heating up across the country. So maybe the return of some heat. We're also seeing, maybe some showers for this evening into tomorrow for parts of southwestern Ontario. Not expecting much of that in the GTA. But yes, Shannon, midweek, a 40% chance, maybe a millimeter or two. But next weekend, between 5 and 10 millimeters we're looking at. Now, we are looking at, a bit widespread. Whitby might even see some storms on Wednesday. A nice temperature pattern, Shannon, but maybe the return of the humidity by the end of next week, starting to see those 6-degree jumps when you factor in the humidex.
Okay, we'll take that too. Thanks, Matt.
You bet. Have a good night.
Bike riders coming together for a good cause, raising money for pediatric brain tumor research.
You know, it's just having all the support of all our friends, family, and all those people who donate. We are heading close to, over the 5 years, we're heading very close to $200,000.
The Bike for Kids event was a 150-kilometer cycling ride stretching from Toronto to Niagara Falls. This year's ride is in honor of the distance the co-founders traveled each day during their epic ride 5 years ago. Finally, tonight, Ukrainian newcomers had a fun day learning how to play hockey. It was part of the Play On Sports Festival that took place in Mississauga. Take a look.
Today, not only are youth and adults, boys, girls, men, women playing here and competing, but we're also hosting a newcomer clinic. We're going to have dozens of Ukrainian kids, newcomers to Canada, putting a stick in their hand. They're going to learn some skills about street hockey. They get to see some celebrities play, and they're going to have a good time.
In Ukraine, hockey is not so popular, but after I explained how it is popular in Canada and it is a culture and children want to try.
Know that the Ukrainian population is facing dire circumstances back home, and so we just want to be able to shed some light and bring the spirit of happiness to these kids who who have come to Canada not under the greatest of circumstances. There's not a lot of diversity in hockey, and that's been our mission. Since 2015, we've worked with kids from 36 countries of origin, and we're going to continue to do that not only here in Toronto, but across the country.
A beautiful day to get outside and play some hockey, wouldn't you say? Well, that is our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can stay caught up on news anytime. You can find our website, cbcnews.ca, and we'll be back again tomorrow night at 11. We'll see you then.